Hello, everyone, and happy Sunday. Thank you very much for joining today's big community chat fundraising stream. Although, of course, I have prepared the new segment for you also, short one. And as I did last Sunday, dear friends, I will get to community chat straight away. And time to time, I will go through some news. Let's have a good talk. By the way, good conversation about any topic. Really, hopefully, chat will be active, and we will discuss many issues that we are concerned with. I already can see in the question from the Nikos, which is that I saw on a Twitter that Russia specifically in the Saratov region is experiencing heavy snowstorms. The area is already being evacuated. How severe is the weather situation in Russia? Well, in Saratov region, I did read an article this morning about people being evacuated from the highway, not from some settlement, but from the highway due to bad weather conditions. It has become necessary for emergency services to get involved. And if I remember correctly, about 150 people were evacuated. Things happened. It's a winter time, and periodically, at least, winter is quite severe here in Russia, but nothing extraordinary really. This is one of situation in Saratov region on one of their highways. Generally speaking, I have not read no articles about some emergency situations due to winter winter weather. Here in Moscow, last 2 days we do have some frost and a little snow. Yet again, nothing extraordinary. Many people were hoping for a snow and the frost because after all, New Year is coming, and of course, for to have a good for vibe for Year's vibe. I don't know how should I say настроение in English. You need to have a little snow, isn't it? Although it depends in which part of this world that you are living. Probably there are certain areas in this world where there never snow during the New Year's celebrations. So yes, there was an emergency situation in Saratov, but emergency services are there and they're working to provide whatever help is necessary. And we just mentioned the emergency situation, and dear friends, we have to of course go through news, tragic news that happened in Australia. Unfortunately, there was a terrorist attack on one of the beaches in Sydney when a local Jewish community was celebrating Hanukkah celebration, and terrorists opened fire during that celebration. Of course, worldwide media is reporting about it, and the latest information is that at least 12 people were killed by these terrorists, including children. Tragedy, of course, struck Australian community, and this is too bad, man. This is too bad. One may condemn actions of the Israeli regime all day longer, but there's supposed to be, always a red line, isn't it? There is a state policy of Israel which is condemned worldwide by majority of the humanity, I will say, and there is Jewish people that have nothing to do, in most cases, with with actions of the Israeli regime, and this is just horrifying what had happened, tragedy, and those terrorists. I believe one of the terrorists were killed, another one wounded, although still alive. I guess he will spend the rest of his shitty life in prison because this is garbage, by the way. Human scum, right? That opened fire on innocent people that were celebrating holiday. Horrible, man. What else can be said about it? It is unfortunate that due to criminal actions of the Israeli regime, hatred towards the Jewish people is on the rise worldwide. Many studies suggesting that, and this is too bad. This is too bad. Once again, demonstrates that humanity is not really on the level of progress that one would hope. Hate is pretty much involved, still involved in day-to-day life in many communities in this world. So it's just too bad, man. Tragedy, of course. Always we should distinguish. There is a freaking regime in Israel, and there is innocent people, Jewish people that have nothing to do with it, right? And those Jewish people should never ever be targeted for crimes that was committed by Israeli regime. They have nothing to do with it, right? It's just why this simple stuff has to be explained to anybody, man. Those terrorists clearly have no brains, right, to understand anything. But yeah, I mean, too bad. Too bad. So yeah, tragedy struck Australia. It is still developing story. Many people are hospitalized there, of course. Too bad. Let's go through chat, and dear friends, as always, I will react on questions in the chat, on the comments. Just please use capital letters, and of course you can use super chat on Rumble. I'm streaming on both my platforms right now. I will drop a link to my Rumble channel. I'll drop it in a chat on the YouTube. And if it's not too inconvenient for you, please switch the channel and watch this and join community chat from Rumble platform. I dropped a link there, and of course I will monitor Rumble, Boosty also. PayPal, it's a fundraising stream, as you know, dear friends. So if there are gonna be any donations during the stream, I will highlight this. On PayPal, by the way, if you don't want me to say your first name, I never say full name, just first name. But if you don't want to be mentioned, then just let me know in a message on the PayPal itself, no mentioning, and that's enough. I would not. Right, I will just highlight that there was donation from a member of our community, and yeah, let's continue our conversation. And time to time, I will go back to news segment itself. So there are no questions right now. I did not see one. So therefore, whenever there is no questions, no topic that community wants to discuss, I will just go through news, dear friends, and let me give you a couple of news. For example, from RIA Novosti, which is that past night Russian air defense systems intercepted 141 drones that was launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO to strike deep into Russia. And details are that 35 drones from these 141 were intercepted in the Bryansk region, 32 over the Crimea, 22 in the Krasnodar region, 15 in the Tula region, 13 over the Kaluga, 7 over the Kursk, 4 each over the Ryazan and Rostov regions, 3 over the Belgorod, 2 over the Leningrad region. And I said many times before, whenever there is attacks on the Leningrad, on northern Russian regions, Leningrad region or any other, and whenever there is strikes on Russian regions far beyond Moscow, eastwards. I always say, in case of northern regions, most likely NATO Baltic states were used as a launch point for these drones. And when it comes to far east regions, far beyond Moscow, my I think Kazakhstani territory is used by Ukrainian and NATO terrorists to launch these drones. One drone each were intercepted over the Smolensk, Rostov, Pskov, sorry, and Novgorod regions, and over the Moscow region. In total, if you other drones that were launched by Kyiv regime yesterday evening, overall number will be 235. There was a massive, quite a large-scale attack on Russia yesterday evening also by Kyiv regime and NATO. TASS news agency is reporting that Russian armed forces liberated Varvarovka settlement in the Zaporozhye region. This is northern side of Gulyai-Polye, dear friends. So let me show you a location of this settlement. So this is Gulyai-Polye, where Russian troops are already conducting operations inside the city. And well, this is Varvarovka settlement, long settlement on along this main supply and support line that once was used by Gulyai-Polye garrison of Kyiv regime to connect with Dnipropetrovsk region, but is completely cut off now by Russian forces. And well, if you take a look at the Varvarovka, dear friends, reports are that this settlement is under full Russian control, and that implies, I guess, that Russian troops are either already in control of Priluki settlement or are about to finalize clearing operation, because earlier there was reports that Dobropolye settlement is also under Russian control. So if Dobropolye controlled by Russian troops and Varvarovka, then Priluki must be too, or Priluki, right? Probably either today or tomorrow we will receive information about the liberation of this settlement. Also, what else have I bookmarked? Of course, this deception operation that West has launched, latest one that West has launched against Russia with this so-called peace plan, which is anything but. It's a clear deception attempt, yet another attempt of Western ruling class to achieve at least a break for themselves and their proxies in Ukraine. And they continue to push this quite a complex deception operation. Complex because there's so much stuff is going on in during this process of, or during this attempt to fool Russian side, right? But and they continue despite the fact that nobody here in Russia takes them seriously. I guess very few people outside of the collective West also takes seriously this deception operation by the West, but they continue to push this nonsense. And for example, reports are that Witkoff and Kushner, a business partner of Trump and their son-in-law of Trump, US president, arrived in Germany today to have a meeting with Ukrainian delegation that allegedly will be led by Zelensky himself. Okay, by the way, yet again, West is offering us this false narrative that we have to believe that Zelensky is such a heavyweight politician on a universal scale, right? On multiversal scale, not just in this universe, but in all the other universes. I mean, Zelensky is a heavyweight among heavyweights. I mean, biggest politician ever. And he is refusing. He is refusing everybody. He is pushing his line, right? Washington is failing to have any influence on Zelensky, and Washington is begging Zelensky to take Washington's offers. This is crazy, by the way. I refuse to take this nonsense seriously and to comment on it seriously. If you're taking this stuff seriously, by the way, I'm quite sure there are many channels, either in alternative media or in MSM, that are pushing this false narrative almost 24/7, by the way. I refuse to do it. This is BS, right? Total BS. I said many times before, this war will end when Western ruling elites capitulate, and they will capitulate either when Russian troops will reach borders of the Western Ukraine, or if in case if this desperate Western ruling class launches open attack on Russia, and if that happens, obviously Moscow will have no option at that point but to retaliate, and retaliate in such a force and with such force and scale, after which, well, Western ruling class will also end up being cornered and they will capitulate. This is just two scenarios that I see plausible. Anything else is just freaking BS and nonsense, right? Even if somehow Western ruling class will manage to mislead Russian leadership, and if Russian side will agree on temporary measures, temporary ceasefire, or whatever, under whatever pretext, that will mean there is a pause in a proxy war, in this proxy war that West is waging against us. That's what that will be. Just a pause. Obviously, this pause will be used by Western ruling class to rearm, reinforce their proxies, and they will launch second phase of this war sometime in the future. It might be like 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, who knows? But war would not stop on that, right? War will stop only in case of those two scenarios. And both scenarios involve capitulation of the Western ruling class. That's it, right? But nevertheless, because Russian media pays attention to this nonsense, I'm sharing with you. I'm giving you. I'm trying to give you better understanding of how Russia thinks, what Russian media pays attention to, and what is being largely ignored. And Vzгляд newspaper and many others, by the way, reported that yes, Witkoff and Kushner arrived in Berlin, and they will have talks. Earlier, there was reports that they should have talks with Zelensky and his inner circle yesterday, but it did not happen, seems like. And well, they will talk today. Okay. Okay. I don't want to comment on this shit, man. It's nonsense, right? And they're gonna pretend that these negotiations were very difficult, and Zelensky is such a tough, and such a heavyweight. He is not backing down, and Trump is begging to accept this Trump's so-called 28-point deal. But I mean, this is process, right? And therefore, Russia, give us some time. Let's do ceasefire. Let's do ceasefire. Meanwhile, you see how hard we are working to persuade everybody. These European elites that don't want peace, and also Zelensky. Just give us time, give us a break. Like let's do ceasefire. That's the game plan, right? Part of it, at least. It's a freaking nonsense, and I refuse to take it seriously. TASS news agency is, and by the way, one might say, who the hell are you that you are taking seriously, or why it's important? It's not important, by the way. My judgments are based on my education and my experience, and that's about it, right? And after all, it's me that spent like 3 decades in freaking journalism, and it's me that have a journalistic education, right? That's all. My judgment is based on my knowledge and experience. Sometimes I'm correct, sometimes I'm wrong, but well, after all, I did not spend all my life in in field of medicine or physics or whatever. I spent all my life, adult life, in field of journalism, and somehow I do know how to distinguish which news should be taken seriously and which is not, and that's why I guess my predictions are quite often correct, right? That's it. TASS news agency is reporting also that according to Ushakov, Russia has not seen the EU and Ukraine's proposals for the peaceful settlement. You see, dear friends, the Russian foreign ministry, as I mentioned yesterday, is also sick and tired of these nonsensical games that Western ruling class is pushing, and the Russian foreign ministry is quite distant now from all these fake narratives, from all these fake stories. All you hear is aides of Russian president, Ushakov and Dmitry, right? It's their job, right? Moscow don't want to shut down doors completely because that will be used by Western ruling class as also as a reason to cry a lot, right, to further demonize Russia, that you see it's Russia that is shutting down door for talks and the escalation. So to avoid that additional noise, Moscow is leaving door open, and Ushakov and Dmitriev, even though they probably understand this is all BS and freaking nonsense, they still are commenting on the matter, saying some stuff. But yeah, that's it. When it comes to EU's plan, peace plan, so-called, or Kiev regime's peace plan, I know there are numerous channels that are discussing this stuff seriously, and I refuse to do it. It's yet again, I refuse to take seriously nonsense, right? As a fact, I'm reporting that Ushakov said that Russian side have not seen all these plans that Western propaganda is talking about, plans, peace plans from Kiev regime, or redacted peace plans that from Kiev regime or the EU. Okay, right. Peskov also said that Russia is looking for a guidance in the matters of settlement from the US, which is yet again a part of this open door policy for open door policy towards diplomacy, I guess, because it's quite a stuff to say that you are more focused on US or the Euro. They are, in that case, you are doing distinguishing, isn't it? You are saying that, well, US is different and the European elite different, and you are suggesting kind of that they are not the same gang. You are suggesting that they are not one criminal gang that is waging war against you, which is a fundamental mistake, obviously. They are saying, all my life I'm hearing this nonsense that, well, there is divide between US elites and the European elites, and they hate each other, and NATO is finished, and this and that, and I'm 48, by the way, and somehow NATO is still there. Washington is still ally of European so-called elites, and there is only noise around, right? Nothing is changing in reality. In terms of policies, nothing is freaking changing. But let me give you details what Peskov said. The Europeans are playing the game. It still looks like they want the war to continue, but here, naturally, we are more focused on our counterparts in Washington. Peskov told Russia One journalist Pavel Zarubin on the program Moscow, Kremlin, Putin, and I really hope this is just a part of a game that Russia is playing, game of open door policy towards diplomacy, right? I really hope Kremlin is not trusting no one from Washington, because we are fucked, man. If Kremlin is trusting anybody from Washington, we are in trouble. Minsk free, yeah, bring it on then. If anybody, especially Putin, trusts anything that comes out from Washington, and if Putin takes seriously Trump and his administration, then we are in trouble, unfortunately. And that will mean that probably Moscow will agree on some temporary solutions. Moscow will give break to our enemies, right? And that will mean our kids will have to continue this fight. Maybe even our generation, but we're going to leave this war to our kids potentially, right? Either we have to finish this fight now with a complete victory, or our kids and their kids going to hate us all for leaving this problem to them. And let me give you this news also. RT is reporting that EU's tampering with Russian assets is a theft, no matter how it's framed. This was stated by Maria Zakharova, spokeswoman for the Russian Foreign Ministry, and this is true, by the way. Of course, it is a theft. I reported yesterday that EU freeze Russian assets or immobilized Russian assets permanently, right? And yes, it is theft, obviously. And based on this, they're going to use these Russian assets now as a collateral for 140 billion euro loan or whatever they are planning to allocate for prolongation of this proxy war. So it is a theft, obviously, and I wonder how Moscow will react on it. That's the only question I have personally. Will we confiscate? Will we confiscate assets, Western assets here in Russia or not? That's all that matters at this point to me personally, because I said a million times before, we're not gonna see those Russian assets that's been frozen in Europe ever. Our Crafter is hello, our Crafter. Long time. I have not seen you. You have a cool. What is the name? Avatar, by the way. It's a Chiburashka, isn't it? And our Craft is commenting 18 question. Defenestrations. Russians thrown out of window 2022. FIFA column. Have these victims been mourned by the Russian masses, or were there corrupt pro-Ukrainian officials? Our Crafter, can you like explain your question a little better, because I'm a bit confused there. To what I mean, what is the question really? Nice to see you there. Also, Smoky Sally is commenting. Luan, Ru did take control over the remaining railroad to Kaliningrad. Sorry if spelling is better. Poland and Latvia are more angry. If you are talking about connection between Kaliningrad and Russia, or Kaliningrad region and Belarus, let's open the map to see better areas that we are talking about. So this is Kaliningrad region on the Baltics, of course, and Kaliningrad region is cut off from either Belarus or Russia, and encircled basically by NATO, extremely hostile NATO, and Lithuania constantly uses blackmail methods, right, against Russia, constantly threatening that they're gonna cut Russia completely from the land to supply Kaliningrad region, and there is agreements in place, by the way, right? This is, I believe, based on international also norms and agreements that exclaves have, countries that are under exclaves of other countries have to provide access to those exclaves, right? And between Russia and Lithuania, for example, there is also such an agreement in place, and Lithuania have to let Russian trains to pass through Belarusian territory and enter Kaliningrad. But blackmail is intensified from Lithuanian side, from the NATO, basically, right? Because we all understand Lithuania is not operating separately from their globalists or from their Western ruling class. And the topic of supply of Kaliningrad is definitely a topic that is discussed quite often, security of the Kaliningrad region. And of course, it has to be discussed because we all know, and I report about it, that even high-ranking NATO generals publicly, by the way, stated that they're going to obliterate Kaliningrad, that they are ready to obliterate Kaliningrad. They are openly threatening hundreds of thousands of Russian civilians that are in the region, right? They are openly threatening Russia. So we cannot pass on that. We have to take this threat seriously, right? And there is several ways. If it comes to direct clashes between NATO and Russia, if it comes to isolation of Kaliningrad, which will be act of war, No one should make a mistake on that. If NATO tries to completely cut off Kaliningrad from any supply and support from the land and the sea, that will be an act of war. And Russia will have every reason, legally, every legal means and basis to launch a military operation to provide security for Kaliningrad region and people that are living there. And on this matter, I see several scenarios that might be plausible. And for example, you know my take on Ukraine, for example. I'm quite sure this war, that proxy war is raging against Russia, will end with capitulation of Western ruling class, and they will capitulate when Russian troops, one way or another, but will reach borders of the Western Ukraine. I don't know how long it will take, but this war not gonna end before that. One way or another, Russian troops will reach borders of the Western Ukraine, and when it comes to, and at that point, Western ruling class will capitulate and acknowledge that they lost, right? When it comes to western parts of the Ukraine, this creation of Bolsheviks, well, some 70%, approximately 70% of the western Ukraine used to be part of Poland, right? And I believe Polish elites are dreaming about reclaiming these former territories, right? Including city of Lvov, for example, Rovno, and others. And when it comes to it, Moscow might say, you know what, we might have no issue with that. Warsaw, you might reclaim this 70% of Western Ukraine, and this is massive area, by the way. Land mass is huge. People are forgetting that Ukraine, this creation of Bolsheviks, is the biggest country in Europe. Used to be biggest country in Europe, right? After collapse of Soviet Union. By territory, it's a massive, by the way. It's bigger than Poland, bigger than Germany, bigger than France, I believe. Continental part of it, bigger than Italy, right? Bigger than Spain. It's literally, by land mass, used to be biggest in Europe. Well, some might argue that France with their overseas territories are going to be bigger. Might be. I'm not talking about numbers, first or second, but it's a big area, right? And Western Ukraine is also massive. And the 70% of Western Ukraine that Poland might reclaim is a huge territory. It will add to Poland third. I mean, Poland will increase by third at least, while adding this massive area, right? And Moscow might say, you know what? Okay, we might don't have an issue with that, but you have to give us a Suwalki Gap. We have to give us a land bridge from Belarus to Kaliningrad. This could be topic of negotiations, political negotiations, right? And I can see why Poland will agree on that. I can actually see why Poland will agree on such a deal, right? On such a agreement. But yet again, if NATO countries will decide to completely isolate Kaliningrad, if NATO countries will openly attack Russia and commit acts of war openly, in that case, Russia will take Suwalki Gap and potentially certain parts of Lithuania. Also, Suwalki Gap is in Poland, and there is a neighboring territory in Lithuania, right? That most likely will be liberated by Russian forces to establish bridgehead to Kaliningrad region. But this will happen militarily only in case if NATO attacks Russia first, openly. NATO already attacking Russia, but for now they are pretending, they are hiding behind their plausible deniability, right? They are using their proxies. But if they will go ahead there with the open attack, then we will have a bridge, we will have a land bridge, we will establish land bridge towards Kaliningrad region. Russia not gonna occupy completely Lithuania. We don't freaking need that. But for security purposes, of course, there will be some geographical changes of these Baltic republics, and for Poland too, potentially for Finland too. If NATO dares to attack Russia openly, it will not end well, by the way, for NATO countries. I can tell you that. But for now, Russia is not doing nothing, right? Russia is completely focused on political solutions in relationships, in terms of guaranteed security for Kaliningrad region. But if things escalate, then yeah, Moscow definitely can do some stuff to ensure territorial integrity of the Russian Federation and safety and security of the Russian citizens. Hopefully, I answered well enough. So okay, that's been said, dear friends. Let me check. There was no super chat on Rumble. No messages from Anna about any donations or the questions from PayPal. So okay, let's continue, dear friends. I just remind you that this is community chat also, and also fundraising. Target usually is $200. Last week we did manage to get to this target. I don't know about this week. Hopefully we will. It definitely helps me to be focused on this work, by the way. Despite all the issues that we were facing past several weeks, I did not miss, I believe I did not miss live streams, with the exception of one day when I explained why I was unable to make a live stream. And I dropped now link to my Rumble in the chat, dear friends, in case you can switch to my Rumble channel. So okay, let's continue. I'm scrolling now again, and if I see any questions or the topics. Alexander G is commenting, Kremlin has no reason to trust Trump. He's showing exactly how peaceful and diplomatic he is. Yes, 100%. It's not just about Trump, by the way. I have strong belief that U.S. is run by special interests, groups of special interests. We might agree on that or don't, but I truly believe that since the Second World War, especially, even before that, influence of certain groups was remarkable, I believe. Take a look at the Washington, by the way, capital of US, how it's built there, what kind of influence is there in terms of architecture and messaging and stuff. And you will know that creation of US itself was kind of part of a plan of certain influential groups, right? I would not go into details, but if you know, you know, right? And especially after Second World War, it has become too obvious to me personally, at least, that they are too powerful. These groups of influence are just too freaking powerful, and they are decision makers, right? We can call them a military-industrial complex. We can call them multinational corporations or deep state or intelligence committee, whatever. These are powerful groups of influence that are communicating between each other, right? And are pulling the strings, and that's why they are basically choosing the people that will be in a high-ranking position in a Democratic Party, among Democrats, among Republicans. They are pushing those people, right, in the House, in a Senate, in the positions, in regions, in the states, also in the state legislative level, and the governors. Well, they are in control. They are in full control. Just a couple of days ago, it was Trump, isn't it, that was complaining. He was caught on hot mic, and he was complaining that he cannot appoint nobody. He cannot do much, right? Because Congress is blocking him. And who controls the Congress, by the way? It's all of them are corrupt, right? All these lawmakers, so-called lawmakers in US are corrupt, and you trace the money and you will see all of them, most of them at least, let's say this way, vast majority of them being financed by these special groups of interests, right? Either military industrial complex or multinational corporations, being pharmacy or the energy sector or the banking system or whatever, Silicon Valley and so on, right? So that's how it works, and therefore, no matter Putin himself was saying, right? I believe Putin himself was saying, even during the interview with Tucker Carlson, that well, basically, what happening in US is that when you have a conversation with a person that might be, let's say, elected as a president, this person sounds reasonable, right? Conversation is reasonable, and once this person is getting to White House, then some people in gray costumes will get to him, and those persons are changing completely. Their rhetoric is changing, their policies are changing, and I'm reiterating now statement of Russian president. We can check it on Tucker Carlson's channel. I guess that interview still is there. So yes, that's what is happening, and this is happening for a reason. No matter who is the president in US, policies being dictated by these special groups of interest. So that's why I'm saying, if anybody in Kremlin or among Russian leadership trusts anything that comes out of Trump or current administration, then we are in trouble. We, I mean Russia. Because if we trust them, then we're gonna end up in a Minsk free, and we're gonna lose, man. We're gonna lose, right? Not in general terms, but in tactical terms, that will be setback if we trust them, right? That will be setback, and we will find out. We will find out if Moscow trusts Washington or not in relatively short time. If Moscow agrees on anything but complete capitulation of the Western elites, then, well, you know, that will be too bad, because that will mean West will get its break. They will rearm, reorganize their proxy regime, and sometime in the future they will launch second round. That's how it's gonna be. So Kremlin definitely has no reasons. I agree with you, Alexander, completely. Kremlin definitely has no reasons to trust anybody from the Western elites, right? And this attitude that we are seeing from Moscow, that, you know what, Washington is kind of more adequate guys, and these European elites, I mean, they are just baddies. I mean, this attitude is if it's a part of a game, then okay. But if anybody here in Moscow actually believes in that, then we are in trouble. What can I say, man? We cannot trust them, man. It's dangerous, dangerous. Our craft is commenting in 2022, 18 Russians were thrown out of window. That's quite a claim to make, our craft. I mean, you were there when those people were thrown out of window, or how you know? And our craft is saying that this was Russian officials. Okay, I don't know. I have not heard anything about it. Sometimes people are failing, by the way, unfortunately. Sometimes people do some crazy stuff and they are failing from buildings, right? Some of them might be officials outside of their workplace. Some of them might be non-officials, right? But what you are implying while saying so that, well, who is throwing these people out of windows? If you think they were thrown out of windows, and who were those people? I mean, what were they like? Who were they, politically speaking? Position, opposition. What was the reason in your mind that they've been thrown out of window, and by whom? Um, this is too strong a claim to make. Usually, that kind of stuff is done in the West by Western propaganda. They just come out with some claim, and they never explain nothing. They just say, you know what, in Russia, like 500 million thousand people were jailed last month, and that's it, man. And they will continue how bad Russia is, and no one will ask question how they jailed 500 million people when they only have like 145, right? So you know, Nidish is asking Levan, how is daughter's health now? Oh, good. She's good. Thank you, Nidish, and many thanks to all the members of our community for the kind words and kind wishes. She's doing good. She's doing good. Medics did everything what was necessary, and now it's a recovery moment. Another day or two, and I guess that's it. We still are taking some medicines to stay on the safe side, right? But generally speaking, yes, it's all good. So it's always better never to end up in a situation when you have to ask doctors for help. But life does its things time to time that we might don't like, and we might even hate. But yeah, life has its own rules, and we end up being in a situation where we have to ask for help doctors, and doctors did their job. And as I said, dear friends, if we were living in US, probably I would go bankrupt, because it will, I can assume it will cost tremendous money. Here in Russia, it did not cost nothing. Literally, not a single penny, by the way, nothing. We just see doctors. Doctors said, yeah, we have to do surgery. They did it immediately, like in matter of hours, literally. And then we stay in a hospital for a week, about a week, for recovery, and we were let home. And yet, day or two, we still have to take little medicine as a part of recovery, and that's it. So she's good. Thank you very much, Nidish. Also, a good question from the Nidish. Does Russia has its own computer operating system? If not, we have to develop it. Well, that's a question that I also have asked many times. Why, even though we have a great programmers and so on, why we are not developing our POs? And of course, Russia has POs, by the way, and Russian POs are used in military-industrial complex all over the place, right? But when it comes to civilian applications, yes, certain state institutions obviously are using Russian POs only because it is prohibited to use Western POs or foreign POs, right? But generally speaking, when it comes to all sorts of gadgets and stuff, they all are operating on the Western PO, either Google's PO or iPhone. iPhone operates only on iPhone. Even Chinese gadgets, by the way, that come to Russia are operating on Western POs. This is not good. This is no good. Of course, we have to have our own, and we can develop. By the way, Russia can develop its own PO and only authorize import of the gadgets which will have Russian PO on it. Russia can do it together with India, for example, and no one can tell us that we cannot do it, man. No one can say it. We can do it. Best programmers in the West are coming from where? From Russia or from India. Usually that is the case, right? So this is an issue. I think this is big issue that we have to deal with. Absolutely. And also, once we will, uh, once we will achieve first successful steps in this direction, when Russian market, let's say, is on local PO, we can export this PO, right? It has to be good, very good, to compete with the Western POs, and that's it, man. And unfortunately, these topics have not been. I mean, I cannot say that there are not much attention to this topic. Of course, there is attention, and much is being done in this direction. But I hate the fact that if tomorrow I buy phone, most definitely, by the way, most definitely in that phone, if it's anything but iPhone, it gonna has Google's Google's PO, right? I hate that. I don't want to use nothing Western, man. I don't. And I see this is to be security stuff, security threat for Russia to use Western POs. But you know, tell this to freaking oligarchs here in Russia and others that invested 300 billion into West, 300 billion plus. You know, they could use this 300 billion to invest here in Russia and develop some absolutely necessary stuff, including POs, by the way. But they didn't. And I'm quite sure there is a lot of small companies, by the way, that are trying to get some attention from investments. They might have some revolutionary programs and stuff, but they are forgotten by everybody in most cases. And eventually, you know what's going to happen? Those people going to end up working on a Google or on a Meta or some other Western company, which is tragedy, by the way, I will say. There was a super chat, dear friends, on super chat on Rumble from Blorp. Let me highlight this super chat. Thank you very much, Blorp, for your support and attention. Let me highlight this super chat, and there is a comment from Blorp also. And well, we opened the score in fundraising with this super chat. Blorp is commenting, I'm not gonna ask a Grok or a Chat GPT. I'm gonna use my brain. This is the comment from Blorp. Thank you very much, Blorp, for your comment, for your super chat, and their $20 donation to Rumble. Truly appreciate your support. Thank you. And yes, that's the best way, obviously, to go forward, to educate ourselves as much as we possibly can, and to have our own opinion on the matters, for sure. Thank you very much, Blorp. Let's continue now. Why White Falcon is asking, what do you think will happen with Kupiansk? Well, Russian troops gonna reclaim all the territories, reestablish control over all the territories that Kiev regime's forces established control over past 48 to 72 hours, and Russian troops gonna move forward westwards from there. If anybody thinks that Kiev regime gonna be able to establish control over the Kupiansk, then I have what is that mountain rig? Himalayas mountain rig in my pocket, by the way, to sell. So yeah, that's what is gonna happen. I said yesterday, isn't it, that well, because someone from a Russian side, because someone made the premature claim that certain settlements, and let me show you what we are talking about, by the way, right? That's why premature claims, especially from bigger sources, are damaging, very damaging, right? And I cannot tell you from where these reports were originated initially, but the claims were that these settlements, for example, Moskovka, Sobolevka, and some others, by the way. There were claims that these settlements were under Russian control, right? And well, everyone believed because source was big. While during the checking on the matter, what is going on in a Kupiansk area, I come across some articles in the Russian segment of internet with the critical explanations, actually, that due to these mistakes, including in terms of information campaign, when some prematurely was claimed there are certain settlements to be completely liberated, which was not the fact, by the way. Russian troops entered these settlements, but they never finalized clearing operation. They never, allegedly, that's what happened. They never finalized their operation, never established complete control. And there was a presence of the Kiev regime's forces there, Kiev regime's forces, NATO mercenaries, right? And because the Russian side made a claim that, well, we liberated this settlement on the northern western side of Kupiansk, well, you know what Kiev regime did? They wait a little bit, and then when they launched this counteroffensive that many channels talking about nowadays, they start making claims that, well, we recaptured this village and that village that were actually never fully liberated by Russian forces. So Kiev regime's troops did not really recapture anything. They just said that, well, we are here, and they start making videos. They were there anyways, right? Even before that. But they used this mistake on the Russian side of early claim about liberating of these several settlements on the northern western side of Kupiansk to say and to push this narrative that you see how successful our counteroffensive are. We liberated this village and that village and this village, and we are now inside the Kupiansk itself. And they are inside the Kupiansk because, you know what? They never left Kupiansk. They never left Kupiansk. Kupiansk seems like was never completely cleared from the enemy forces. Although claim was made, and Russian president was told that Kupiansk is under full Russian control. And I have questions about this claim. Was it actually under full Russian control? Was clearing operation finalized? I'm not there. I don't know, but probably not. Probably there were some significant forces of the Kiev regime and their NATO mercenaries left there, right? And the Kiev regime deployed additional troops, additional reserves from whichever area. Some channels are claiming that they redeploy forces from Sumy region, from Chernigov region. Could be the case, I don't know. So they bring more troops and start pushing from these areas that they did not really left before. And now they were able to paint the picture that you see, we liberated this village, that village, and that, and that, and that, and we are in Kupiansk now, and pushing hard. It's a mistake on our part, by the way. It's a mistake. First of all, in terms of this media campaign, right? There was no necessity to make early claims that Kupiansk is under full Russian control, or Maskovka settlement is under full Russian control, or Sobolevka settlement. Make the claim when this settlement is actually under Russian control, right? So you would not end up in a situation that we are right now, when Kyiv regime is just saying, you see, we launch counteroffensive and we take control over all these settlements that Russia said they have liberated. It's a media op, by the way. But when it comes to what your question, what's gonna be next? Well, I guess Russian troops will exterminate these attacking forces of their hostile side, and will move forward. But what's gonna happen? I mean, what do you expect that's gonna happen? This is a more media campaign on part of Kyiv regime than some actual breakthrough. Let's be real here. And this media campaign was organized, orchestrated by the Kyiv regime and its NATO backers. Timing was chosen, right? And today, for example, when Zelensky will have talks with Witkov and Kushner and so on, after that meeting, or maybe during that meeting, if media is allowed, they will make claims that, you see, Kyiv regime is attacking. Kyiv regime is in offensive. They liberated this village and that village, and they are pushing hard inside the Kupiansk itself. This is a purely media campaign. Kyiv regime didn't manage to achieve no freaking breakthroughs and will never be able to achieve any breakthroughs anywhere. But we have to learn on our mistakes. We just have to learn on our mistakes. I don't know what the hell is wrong with the northern regions, or with the command of the northern regions, right? But you remember there was a somewhat similar story in the Seversk area about a year ago, and Russian general staff removed basically local commanders, almost all of them, right? Because reports were going to Moscow that were not actually correct. Based on these reports from local commanders in the Seversk area, Moscow, Russian Defense Ministry was making claims that, well, this is the advance of the Russian forces in this area and that area. And then we find out that, you know what, there was no freaking advances. Local commanders, for whatever reason, were lying to Defense Ministry, to the general staff. And those people were removed. And since then, well, new people were appointed there, new generals, new staff, basically, was appointed in Seversk direction. And since then, by the way, Russian troops finalized clearing operation of this massive Serebryanka forestry. Remember how long battles were going on for Belogorovka area, how long battles were going on for there was another settlement, by the way, a tiny settlement, Sinkovka or whatever, Privolier. I mean, that's what's going on there. Then Russian leadership make changes, military leadership make changes, new people were appointed, and they are leading the operations in very different ways, right? They are actually doing the opposite. And that's why liberation of Seversk became as a surprise. They did not share information that, you know, well, we have great progress in Seversk area. No, they did not say nothing, literally nothing, right? And then suddenly reports came in that Seversk is under full Russian control. You see? So I guess there will be some changes made in the command of the Russian forces that were operating in the Kupiansk direction, possibly, right? And that's going to be immediate outcome probably of this situation. But eventually, Russian side will deploy more troops and will liberate all their areas that were potentially actually captured by Kiev regime's forces during the past several days, and then Russian troops will, after finalizing clearing operation in the southern eastern side of the Kupiansk on the left bank of Oskol River, Russian troops will move forward westwards. Yet again, dear friends, this is not a major breakthrough of Kiev regime, as they love to claim. This is a massive failure in the media confrontation on the Russian side. That's it. We should not make claim about any freaking settlement as being liberated if it's not. Otherwise, Kiev regime will use it against us. They will make freaking videos in that village and say, you see, we recaptured this village, while they never left this village in reality. That's it, man. That's it. Russia has a massive army, by the way, huge army, right? There is God knows how many generals and colonels and so on, and who knows. And as I already mentioned, by the way, not all officers might be up to task, right? And that was clear in terms of what was happening in the Seversk some year ago, right? Around Seversk area. But then general staff made their necessary changes. Command was replaced, command of Russian grouping of forces in the Seversk direction. And you clearly see how tremendous progress is since then of the Russian militaries. And right now, not just Seversk is under Russian control, but clearing operation in Zakatna settlement is about to be finalized, and Russian troops are conducting offensive in Liman itself nowadays. So that's how it is. It's a setback, obviously, what had happened there, setback, but not so much in military terms as in media terms. Kiev regime is claiming now territories from where their troops never actually left. Most, after they bring some reinforcements, probably they did move forward a little bit, but it's give it a week, by the way, give it a week, and we will see. Martin Mother is commenting. The one Poland only agrees if current government is out of office. Well, yet again, it's if you are talking about exchange sweep, let's say, of Western Ukraine for Suwalki Gap, well, difference is so massive. I mean, this 70% of Western Ukraine is huge. Once Poland will reclaim that territory, Warsaw will actually have some ground for ambitions to become a major player in Europe. And Polish elites, by the way, are dreaming about since forever, right? And therefore, I think even current these extremely Russophobic elements in the Polish leadership might say, you know what, yes, man, this reclaiming former Polish territories from Western Ukraine is just too freaking big to pass on that, right? But in any case, when it comes to the Suwalki Gap area, I see two scenarios, as I already mentioned. One is if some political agreement was reached between Moscow and Warsaw, and another, if NATO attacks openly Russia, then obviously Moscow will have to take some actions to secure itself, to secure Russian people, including Kaliningrad region. I believe in case of open hostility from the let's use map. I think in case of open hostility from NATO, Moscow will definitely have to deal not just with Poland in terms of Suwalki Gap and Lithuania, but also with Latvia, Estonia, and Finland, at least to make sure to make sure that NATO never gonna be in a position to establish any kind of maritime blockade of St. Petersburg. After Second World War, Finland supposed to be neutral, right? And so Finnish Gulf of Finland never supposed to be under the threat. But because Finland now is a member of NATO, that changes quite a lot, right? And if NATO dares to attack Russia openly, and they might, by the way, they are clearly preparing for that. Obviously, Russia will take care of NATO, and Russia will establish not just a land bridge to Kaliningrad region through Poland and Lithuania, but Russia will also liberate certain territories from terrorist regimes in Finland, Estonia, Lithuania, through certain territories that have to be in hands of Russia for security reasons. Yet again, if NATO attacks openly, by the way, if NATO acts adequately, there is no issue there. They're not supposed to be issue. But if NATO attacks Russia, then openly, then we have to take care of this stuff, man, and we will. A real talk, man. Finland not going to be in a position to threaten Russia, and NATO not going to be in a position to threaten Russia that they're going to block Gulf of Finland, right? And they are now kind of on that trajectory, right? Finland made a crucial mistake, fundamental mistake, maybe even fatal mistake, joining NATO, by the way. I don't know if Finnish people are realizing this, how dangerous this decision is for Finland, but yeah, it's too late now, isn't it? It's just too freaking late now, and all this, just take a look at the map, by the way. We will cut off Finland from the Baltics, from a Gulf of Finland, anyways. If they will dare to attack us, we will cut off Finland from Gulf of Finland, and they will have to establish their capital somewhere else. If that's what's going to happen to Finland. I don't think Finnish people are realizing this, man, that they will have to move their freaking capital. Yeah, that's how it is. Some big war is coming, by the way. Big war is coming. It's just seems inevitable at this point, because West is just too hostile. West is just too hostile. They are not leaving chances for a peace, for sustainable peace, man, on the continent, on the Eurasian continent, on the European part of it. And Russia will do whatever is necessary to secure itself, obviously, and that's it. We don't give a damn who will like it and who will not. We will do what is necessary for our safety. So if Finland wants to fuck about or fuck around, then okay, they will find out soon. Same goes for Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, Poland, everybody, by the way. They are messing with the wrong guy. They are messing with the wrong guys. All of them, man. Right? And one thing is clear. Last thing that Russian people wants, last thing that Russian leadership wants, is a war with anybody. But if we have to be engaged in a big war, then that's what we will do, and we will prevail. That's it, man. It is what it is, and I guess that's why, because Putin knows this, that's why he said, like a year ago or something, that Russia did not even started yet. He said that, isn't it? That Russia did not even started yet, and he is correct, by the way. You might agree or disagree on some of his policies, but he is correct. Russia did not even started yet. And we don't want, man. I don't know anybody, literally nobody, that I'm communicating with wants or any wars with anybody. We don't want it, but if we will be left without options, if we are attacked and we have to defend ourselves, we will, and our enemies will pay a heavy price for attacking us. That's it. And this is all my opinions, personal opinions, obviously. By the way, uh, you know, uh, let me check. Dear friends, let me drop once again a link from into YouTube chat from link to my Rumble. If you can, please switch to Rumble, and let's continue our conversation. That's quite something. Panzo Beans is commenting, all I want for Christmas is my account's password. Oh, familiar stuff for everybody, I guess, when you are forgetting password to some platform. Oh, I have done it so many times, man. You know, uh, don't your browser has a in memory passwords? Try that. It helped me a couple of times. Browser has a in memory passwords too that you can then check. Although I'm quite sure you know this all technical stuff better than I saw. Probably you already tried. Our crowd also on this topic. Ex Grok says Russia threw 18 high-profile dissidents out of Windows in 2022. They were against the invasion. Do Russian masses mourn them, or they corrupt pro-Ukrainian traitors to Russia? Uh, who cares what Grok told you, our crowd? Grok is a program that's used against Russia, as X is used against Russia, and all the other Western platforms. And you might say, well, then why your channel is still on YouTube or Rumble? Yeah, because it's suppressed, right? If they delayed all the channels from Russia, literally all of them, then they would not be able to pretend, right, that they are platforms for free speech. So they allow small channels like mine, but keep them in a strong shadow ban, so that channels would not grow and would not be able to reach wider audiences, right? So, and what is that? Russia is a country, right? Russia did not throw nobody from Windows, and dissidents. What dissidents? It's like this nonsense, right? When there was talks about Navalny. Navalny was a main opposition candidate. Come on, man. Come on. 99.9% of people did not give a shit about Navalny ever, right? Ever, literally. And the Western propaganda betray him, this Nazi figure, but not neo-Nazi garbage, right? As to be some sort of a big opposition figure that whole society was in support of. And Western public probably still believes in that shit, right? That Navalny was a major political figure here in Russia, while he was a piece of shit, right? He was a Nazi, by the way. You know how he was talking about my people from the Caucasus region? He was calling my people cockroaches and that kind of stuff. You know why? Because of their skin color. Southerners are a bit darker than Northerners, right? And that piece of shit, Navalny, during his speeches, calling entire nations, by the way, cockroaches and that kind of stuff. And the Western so-called elites make from this piece of shit, man, some sort of a hero, you know? Fucking hell, man. That's why West is done, man. That's why West is done. They were cooperating with all sorts of a garbage and continue to try so. All sorts of garbage here in Russia. And thanks God, most of them are out of Russia, man. Most of these shitty elements are out of Russia. They run away, right? And they are cooperating with Nazis also in Ukraine. You know, in mainly Christian worlds, Western ruling class is using neo-Nazis, man. These radical elements, right? In Islamic world, in the Muslim world, they are radicalizing people to turn them into jihadists and the terrorists. That's what Western ruling class it does, man, right? And they are unfortunately very good at it. So I don't know what you are talking about, Howard. People are, you know, how many times I was critical of decisions of or policies of the Russian leadership. I'm still critical right now. I'm critical of this rhetoric that Moscow is deploying, right, in regards to US, which creates this possibility for misunderstanding, right? That, you know what, I mean, kind of American leadership is a good guys. They are for peace, but that European elites, they are bad guys, right? And this is mistake. We should not create a foundation to mislead our public, even unintentionally, because people are watching, right, reading, listening, and some people might think actually that, well, Washington, you know, maybe we can trust Washington, while we cannot. We cannot trust Washington, period, right? It's a mistake. Even if this policy is a part of some bigger plan, well, we don't know it, isn't it? I see just this rhetoric. And my honest reaction is that this is a mistake. And I'm critical of that. And no one gonna come here and throw me out of freaking window, man. What are you talking about? You know, and Russian people are busy with some serious stuff, man. We don't care what Grok says about anything, really. It's just, that's how it is. Did Grok says anything positive about Russia or the Russian people? Ask Grok, can you say anything good about Russia or the Russians? Probably Grok will crash. Anyways, let's continue the conversation. Nidish Kumar is asking, Levan, can we ever find a better transport system than railways? I mean, mass transportation on the land? No. Even in science fiction, that are done by authors that are good in physics, by the way. Even in science fiction, there is a railway will change itself. I mean, it may be monorail or whatever, right? Railway will change, but principle will remain. There are going to be these carriages that will move, mostly will be used for, especially for long range transportation of people and the goods, right? So, you know, railway. We can call in 100 years time, we may call some different name to it, right? It might not really look like a current railway, but process is visible, isn't it? For now, world is focused mainly on a high speed railway, but even that is not enough, right? And there are some new technologies being experimented or developed, maglevs and stuff like that, that actually are faster than even most fastest railway, traditional railway. But it's still railway, man. We can call it maglev or whatever, loop. There is also technology of these loops, underground loops, that will use vacuum to move, and the magnets, right? Electromagnet force to move carriages on tremendous speeds, but it's still railway, just modification of it. So no, I don't think they're going to be anything better than railway uh, on this planet. It will change, though. It will change, and I can imagine that in 100 years from now, speed of this future railway will be in thousands of kilometers in hour, literally in thousands of kilometers, right? It will have a, maybe not in 100, but we will get there. For now, if we will, Russia is also beginning to invest quite heavy. We are way beyond behind China, obviously. We are not even close. But we also beginning to invest in high-speed railway, and some active work is done to link Moscow and St. Petersburg, Moscow and Kazan, Moscow and other big cities, which will be a great deal, of course, because that will boost economies significantly. But there is a long way to go, by the way. We need this high-speed railway that links Moscow with Vladivostok. And can you imagine how long that will take, and how costly that's going to be? You know, or maybe we have to start developing or adapting these maglev technologies or whatever with tremendous speeds already right now to link Moscow and let's say Vladivostok, because even on a high speed railway it will take, I don't know, age to get there. Oh, there is discussion in the chat about this grok stuff. Yeah, I don't. These search engines, by the way, and these AIs, they are programs, right? And there are certain groups of interests that are working on that, and they want you to know certain stuff. And whatever questions you're gonna ask, you're gonna get certain answers, right? If you think these AIs, man, they are truly in your service, then come on, come on. It's never the case, man. It's those corporations never have your interests in the calculus. They don't care about you. All they care is themselves and their profits and stuff, right? So let me take a second, dear friends. Oh, okay. Dear friends, there was on Boosty, there was a donation on Boosty, so let me highlight, if I may. Donation from Alexander G. So let me, dear friends, highlight this. It only takes a sec. And let's continue our conversation. Okay. I understand now why Blorp commented about Grok, by the way, or AIs. So let me highlight. No. That's why these quite often teams are working on the programs, because it just takes freaking ages, man, to do stuff, right? But just a sec, dear friends, just a sec. Okay. I guess that will do now. Okay. So thank you very much, Alexander G, for your donation through Boosty. It's a $10 donation, 767 rubles. Thank you very much for your support and attention. And commentary from Alexander G is best wishes from Norway, Levan and family. We appreciate the worker. I try to convene our people here that Russia is not the traitor. Thank you very much for your kind word, Alexander. And I agree with you 100%. We are not traitor. We are not traitor. As long as we are being left alone, as long as we are not attacked, literally nobody I know, right? Vast majority of our society here is peaceful, and no one wants no freaking wars with or trouble with no one, nobody. 100%, by the way. It's just this nonsensical propaganda that is being pushed in the West, that these Russians are these tyrants that all they think about is wars and stuff like that, which is crazy, as crazy as it sounds. It's crazy stuff. Thank you very much, Alexander, for your support and attention, kind words. And let's continue. Let's continue and oh, there was at some point there was a discussion between Banzo Beans and our crafter. Maybe YouTube has deleted some of the comments from our crafter. I did not delete nothing, by the way. And if Banzo is asking, then that means if our crowd himself didn't delete nothing, then it's a YouTube. Um, um, White Falcon, I see your several questions from you about Kupiansk. I already spoke about this, so if you missed it, then please check video about like 15 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago. I did answer to your question. I see a question also from Nikos. The one, I don't think that Putin is in any mood or willing to accept anything Trump is saying. However, the West is immovable. Even when Russia wins in Ukraine, they will never stop. World War III is inevitable. Well, it seems like you are even more skeptical than I am, Nikos, which is bad, man. I don't want to be skeptical. I mean, yeah, it's. I don't even know what to say. Let's hope World War III is not going to happen. Set a scale of confrontation, open confrontation between NATO countries, especially European NATO countries and Russia, truly seems to be inevitable. I would love to be wrong on that, absolutely, but I'm afraid there is just trajectories, right? Trajectories that are clearly visible that Western ruling class is pushing Europe, especially, that is on collision course with Russia. So, certain scale of open clashes, either in the Baltics, maybe even in Ukraine, seems like to be like inevitable. But World War III, when we say World War III, usually what comes to mind is like full-scale nuclear exchange and end of everything, right? And I'm not as pessimistic to say that well, we are heading towards extinction level event. I don't think, or you know what? I hope. Let's say this way. I hope some sane minds will prevail, especially in US, and US will stay out of direct open conflict with Russia, because clash between Russia and US definitely might trigger full-scale nuclear exchange. But if number of European NATO member states are engaged with Russia, in that case, we might not see at least extinction level event, right? Although we should keep in mind that France and UK are nuclear armed countries, and this is threat. This is big threat. That's why I am saying, I have said there on several occasions that when UK orchestrated, when British Secret Services, British government authorized, and then attack on Russian nuclear triad, and then British Secret Services orchestrated attack on Russian nuclear triad, I think at that point Moscow should retaliate and denuclearize UK and France simultaneously. Russia has opportunities to do so. Russia has technical means, weapons to do so, and that should be done, because I don't think we can trust either UK or France with nuclear weapons. I honestly don't think these two countries should have nuclear weapons, as Israel should not have nuclear weapons, by the way. These are absolutely responsible. These are countries that are led by genocidal maniacs, right? And they cannot be trusted with nukes, man. Just cannot. But Moscow acted differently, and yeah, and that is I don't know, man. I just hope there's gonna be no extinction level event. But when it comes to direct clashes between Russia and NATO, I'm on same page with you, Nikos. Seems like it's inevitable. Scale, I don't know, but once NATO will go ahead with their open clashes with Russia, then gloves are off at that point, I guess. And when it comes to Russian leadership, what they trust or not, or what they will accept or not, I mean, how are they gonna accept anything that comes from the West, man? Honestly, after their own experience, after their own personal experience of working with these very same Western elites, how many times Putin has to be lied about stuff by his Western colleagues for him to, finally realize that with those people I cannot have no agreements, man. do not honor anything. I think, you know, Minsk 1, Minsk 2, uh, some other agreements that were in place between West and Russia are enough, absolutely enough for Russian leadership to never trust Western elites because they cannot be trusted. That's it, period, man. Right? They just cannot be trusted. And on a matter of how removable Western elites are and how not, yet again, if US stays out of, I don't think Europe is that powerful as European elites want to pretend, right? Rutte loves to brag about how powerful NATO is compared to Russia and how weak Russia is and that kind of stuff, right? But in reality, I think we can bring whole Europe to its knees in matter of like couple of weeks, maximum couple of months, even without nuclear weapons being deployed. So if Europe will dare to go ahead with their open conflict with Russia, then I guess that's what we will do. And at that point, as Russian president said, by the way, you might think European elites are what you immovable, but immovable or not. But Russian president, you know what he said a couple of days ago, that if Europe will dare to start a war with Russia, open war, then very soon, very shortly, there might be no one left from their Western leadership or Western elites with whom we can have negotiations. So that was quite telling too, because Putin knows talk is cheap, right? And Western elites might brag all day, every day about their power and stuff, but Putin knows perfectly well that Russia can bring down Europe in matter of weeks or months maximum with conventional weapons, by the way, and conventional warfare. And that's it. Russia can create in Europe such a level of chaos that there will be no necessity to actually, send, or in many cases, there will be no necessity to get involved directly. People don't understand what can Russia do, and that is the fatal mistake on part of Western elites when they don't take Russia seriously, or at least pretend not to take Russia seriously, man. It's Also, Martin is commenting. Martin Mother is commenting. Levon, should Russia stop dealing Turkey as they are part of NATO and their double cross as a matter of policies? Well, Turkey is a specific beast, isn't it? Turkey is a specific beast. Right now, both countries, let's be real, both countries, Turkey and Russia, both are using each other. We don't like each other, man. Never liked each other. I'm talking about from political standpoint. Turkey and Russia was never actually allies, historically speaking, never good friends. Our history is hostility mostly, right? But right now we kind of are situational partners. Turkey needs not Russia because Turkish economy is in big trouble, by the way. And for many years, and without Russia, probably situation in Turkey would be like 10 times worse than it is right now. But same time, Russia is also using Turkey for different means, right? For different means, including for alternative routes of import and stuff. So both countries are benefiting, right? Turkey still is a part of this Russian energy exporter lines, right? There is a Turk stream in the place, which is still energy sector, by the way, maybe only like brings in when it comes to federal budget, for example, maximum up to 20% of income, 2025 around that, whole of energy, right? Not just gas or something, but whole of energy sector brings about like 15 to 25, let's say this way, but it's still massive, isn't it? It's a big deal still. And Turkey is is a partner for Russia in terms of this energy exports. So yeah, we use each other. We are situational partners, but not really friends, and we don't trust each other either. We don't trust each other, and relationships between Russia and Turkey might deteriorate very quickly, very rapidly. And Turkey is being used against Russia, by the way, on numerous occasions by UK. Turkey is a British proxy. If everyone should understand, Turkey is a British proxy in the region. Turkish leadership historically is British proxy. And they are using Brits, British assistants to increase their role in the region, right? And in return, they are doing some dirty stuff for Turkey against Russia, and not just in the Middle Eastern region, but also North Africa, by the way, Central Asia, which is very important. And Turkey is being used by UK or British ruling class, which is globalists, right? Turkey also was used there against China. So, if we stop doing any business with Turkey, in that case, London probably will have an upper hand to transform Turkey into more hostile. Turkey is already hostile towards Russia, by the way. It was never friendly. But if we will cut all the business deals, right, that will remove brakes on Turkish elites, and they will go full crazy on behalf of UK. They might even shut down straits. They might cut straits. They might cut Russian fleet from entering the Black Sea or leaving the Black Sea, right? So it's a difficult, it's a balancing act. It's a very complex stuff that is going on, and the cooperation that Russia is engaged in with Turkey in economical terms, right? First of all, energy sector, obviously, Russia is building nuclear power plant in Turkey. Russian tourists still play a big role in Turkish tourism segment. There is a tour stream, obviously, and then some other projects. And there are these businesses, these activities of Russia, more or less keeps Turkey in line. Otherwise, Turkey would be much more hostile. I'm quite sure about it. London will have an upper hand to transform Turkey into more hostile towards Russia than it is now. And we don't need that because, NATO is our enemy. We all understand this. And, well, we have to try to at least keep some tensions inside their enemy camp, right? We have to do our thing to weaken our enemies, right? And we have to treat NATO as enemies, by the way. Let's be real here. Not the people of the NATO countries, obviously. I'm talking about leadership, right? They are enemies, and we have to do our part, right? To make sure that our enemies never going to be as united as they would wish, right? And as strong as they would wish. This is a strategical, geopolitical confrontation in which calculation, which side only wins side that will do best calculations, that will use its actual capabilities best way, right? Because generally speaking, by the way, it's like 40 plus countries, isn't it, collective West, that is against Russia. And Russia is withstanding this fight for how long now? Against entire Western world. It's hard, man. It's hard. Many other countries would be crushed by now. Many other countries, but We are standing strong still, and if West will go ahead with the next phase of escalation, we're gonna, as I said, man, we're gonna change political geography of Europe, the European NATO member states, especially in Baltics. We will have to do it. And if Turkey will not act properly, then well, maybe Russia will actually liberate Constantinople. Who knows? But we don't trust Turkey, man. That's for sure. And I'm from Caucasus region, right? I'm Georgian Ossetian, by the way. And if I have negative attitude towards any country, and if I think that certain state is a historical anomaly, it's a Turkey. It was the Ottoman Empire, and it is a Turkey, by the way. Turkey played devastating role for Eastern Christianity, for Orthodox Christianity, and let's not forget about it. I'm not intent to forget about it. Turkey is a historical enemy of Orthodoxy. Period. Period, man. There's nothing to discuss there. I would love to see a day when Turkey is decimated completely and Constantinople is free again. I would love to see that day, man. And again, nothing against people of Turkey, right? But their state, Turkey, is an issue for me personally, right? I don't like that state, period. And very few people will disagree with me in Georgia and Armenia, by the way, immediate neighbors of Turkey from the Caucasus side. Also, our craft is commenting, and dear friends, before I go through comment, let me check once again. There was a super chat on Rumble from Blorp. Thank you very much, Blorp. Second super chat from you on Rumble. I hope other members of community will join too. I will highlight your comment, Blorp, in just in a second. I already opened the comment from our crafter, and next is of course a super chat. And our craft is commenting, USA wants to keep banderism alive. He's referring to Ukrainian Nazi fascist ideology that was originally generated in, you might not believe, but in UK and Germany. It's a British and German aristocracies, right? British and German political class that developed this political Ukrainianism as an ideology and put this ideology into people's heads that were living on Ukraine, on the eastern outskirts of Polish-controlled territory. This name, Ukraine, comes from Poland. Isn't it? They were calling certain part Ukraine, outskirt. That's what it is. Ukraine means outskirt, right? And they put Brits come first, British ruling class come first with this idea, I believe, to put this political Ukrainianism into heads of these people, especially when these territories become under Russian control, right? So they wanted to divide Russia to create tensions inside the Russia, right? And I remind you, Poland itself was a part of Russia, part of Russian Empire, right, before revolution. And so, yes, British aristocracy started this, then Germans further developed this topic, And they actually did manage to plant seeds of this political Ukrainianism, this Nazism and the fascism into heads of certain number of people in eastern parts, in western parts of modern Ukraine, right, especially. And they cultivated this idea so much so that, well, nowadays we are facing actual army of freaking Nazis, by the way, right, that been brainwashed so much so that they actually believe that they are no longer Russians or the Poles or Hungarians. They are Ukrainians, and they believe they are ethnic Ukrainians. By the way, this freaking nonsense. Can you imagine that? And I remind you that organizer of one of the Ukrainian neo-Nazi formations, right sector, is ethnic Hungarian. By the way, right? Ethnic Hungarian, and but nevertheless, he is denouncing his actual ethnic roots, and that person and his and all the Nazis, by the way, in Ukraine, they are denouncing their actual ethnicity, their actual roots, and are claiming that they are this new thing. They're ethnic Ukrainians that never existed, by the way. It's freaking nonsense, right? But anyways, I don't believe ethnic Ukrainians exist, man, because I don't believe in bullshit. You know, you cannot create ethnicity in 10 years' time, or in 100 years' time. It takes thousands of years ethnicity to form. It's a process, long, slow process, right? It cannot be done in 100 years, man. It's just not happening, no matter how many people you're gonna freaking brainwash. Anyways, so that's to what our craft is referring, these Banderites. Stepan Bandera was a leader of Ukrainian Nazis during the Second World War, and he's actively cooperating with Nazi Germany, obviously. Even SS officers were horrified. Can you imagine that? Even SS officers, and SS was most brutal formations in Nazi Germany. Even they were horrified when they were seeing crimes that these Banderites, these Ukrainian Nazis, were committing against civilians, against Polish people, against Jewish people, against Russians, and everybody they didn't like. So let's continue with a comment from our crowd. So US wants to keep banderism alive. Poland is a US vassal state, so Russia cannot allow Poland to annex the Western Ukraine. Well, this is a big topic. US has certain influence in Poland, and US tries hard. US is actually invested heavy to actually rebuy or you know what, US is for decades now, since the collapse of Soviet Union, US is actively trying to basically establish connections with the Polish elites, right, to infiltrate Poland as much as possible. And they did achieve certain success, but to say Poland is a US vassal is I don't think it's very accurate. Historically speaking, the Polish elites were British proxies, right? Polish elites were British proxies, and this is still the case. And now Polish elites are kind of divided. US did manage to infiltrate Polish elites, institutions, and through NGOs and different stuff. US did manage to basically push towards the position of power, their assets, right, in Poland. And for example, president of Poland right now, Nawrocki, his surname, isn't it? Nawrocki is from the camp of pro-Americans, right? But generally speaking, most of the elites still are British proxies, right? They are still loyal to London. And take a look at the government, Polish government, by the way, Prime Minister of Poland and others. They are globalists, right? They are globalists, and they are in a conflict with their own president, with Nawrocki. So there is this additional indicator that is quite telling that Poland, even though Washington invested heavily to to challenge British influence. I think UK still has the upper hand there in Poland. And but when it comes to our topic of this boundarism, well, Washington and the UK, they both were cultivating this boundarism, isn't it? During the Cold War, both countries, secret services of both countries, by the way, were actively working with the Ukrainian Nazis, right? They were trying to infiltrate Ukraine. During the Cold War, by the way, they were trying to infiltrate Ukraine to establish certain connections. And when Soviet Union collapsed, they did manage to establish this from this boundary rights. They did quite rapidly establish a force that was began playing a significant role in Ukrainian politics. Maybe not the main role because they did not wanted and still don't want Ukrainian Nazis to be like frontmen, right? But they want these Nazis to be around to keep in check everyone else. That's what Washington and London's policies are. So they're both using Ukrainian Nazism and this ideology, this Banderite ideology. This is true. And when it comes to Western Ukraine, well, Western Ukraine, you can imagine, if my understanding of the big picture is correct, if my reading of the big picture is correct, then when Russian troops will reach, by time, when Russian troops will reach borders of the Western Ukraine, you can imagine number of these Ukrainian Nazis and fascists that will be concentrated in these western parts of Ukraine. They will all run. Whoever from them will manage to run to Western Ukraine will run. And therefore, I will say Western Ukraine is going to become a big problem, big headache for Poland, right? It will weaken Poland. And it will weaken Europe big time. Because even though Poland is investing heavy, by the way, in its military, I don't think they're going to have an easy time fighting those Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists. And they will have to fight them, right? Otherwise, they would not be able to establish true control over the territory, truly reclaim the areas that used to be part of Poland before Second World War. So, it's from it depends how you look at the situation. I think Russia needs to let's phrase it differently. I think Russia will have no option but to liberate all of historical Russia. And even though Western Ukraine is also historical Russia, due to demographical situation there, I think will be better to stay out of it because locals are mostly brainwashed, right? And they're not going to receive Russians as liberators. So therefore, it's better to stay out of the Western Ukraine. It's not practical to get involved. So Russia will have no options due to Western hostilities but to liberate all of historical Russia, with the exception of Western Ukraine. That includes, obviously, all the major regions, major cities, from Kharkiv to Odessa, Poltava, Kiev, everything about it. Only Western Ukraine will remain out. And eventually, Poland will claim 70% of it. Hungary will claim Transcarpathia. Romania will claim some parts. And they're going to have problems. They're going to have big problems, by the way, especially Poland. Because, yet again, people are not realizing how bigger Ukraine is or how big Western Ukraine is, right? So 70% of Western Ukraine is like a third of Poland, third of modern Poland. And to reclaim that territory and then to deal with these Nazis and the fascists, by the way, that's going to be hard, very hard stuff for Poland and for NATO, generally speaking. They don't understand yet what kind of monster they breed in Western Ukraine, and they will have to deal with it. Time will come. And those Ukrainian Nazis and fascists gonna do some crazy stuff, man, all over the Europe, uh, in Poland included. I'm not sure they are ready for what is coming for for them, man. So therefore, you see, it depends how you take a look at their matter, our crowd. Western Ukraine, once reclaimed by these NATO countries, Poland, Hungary, and Romania, might become a bite that Europe cannot survive, cannot swallow, or even survive, digest. It might accelerate for the decline of the Europe, which is in Russian interests. Let's be real here. As long as Europe is led by these hostile forces, current elites that they have, weak Europe is beneficial for Russia. We wanted to be allies. We wanted to have good relationships. By the way, Russian president, current president Putin, and before him Yeltsin, both were asking to join NATO, and Russian president was the one that was proposing this idea of uniting economical пространство, economics, right? Let's say from Lisbon, Portugal to Vladivostok, far east of Russia. So Russian president was as friendly to the West and the Western world as one can be, right? And he was all about cooperation and how we can move forward and this and that. And Western elites treat him like, I don't know, man. You know how they treat Russian leadership and Russia, or the Russian people, by the way, for that matter. I don't think Western elites consider us to be humans even, right? They are freaking racists and the fucking Nazis, man. So it's Western elites that pushed Russia away and Russians away. It's not the other way around. Hostility is coming from the West, not from the East. So therefore, obviously, as long as Europe is led by these racists and Nazis and the disgrace of humanity that they are, of course, any trouble for Europe, any decline in Europe will be beneficial for Russia. Let's have a real talk. I mean, that's what I am about, right? It may not sound good, especially for members of our community that are watching from Europe, but come on, man, your countries are fighting us. Your countries are involved in killing of my fellow countrymen. So you think what I'm gonna say? Of course, as much problems your countries will have, the better for us, because your governments would not be able to harm us as much, right? We are at war. Your countries are at war with us, by the way. We did not start it yet. As Russian president said, Russia did not start it yet, but your countries, European members of community, are at war with my country and my people. That's how it is. This is real talk, man. In Western media, you might never hear true, and you will never hear true, but... And you know what I find fascinating, kind of, when in Germany there is a scandal kind of now, when Merz and God knows who else are accusing Russia of some hybrid activity, and Western media, I saw several reports, by the way, I read several articles on that, and this Western so-called media is pushing this narrative that, how dare Russians are engaged in a hybrid warfare or some hostilities against Germany. How dare they, doing this stuff? And there are no evidences, by the way. They are not providing nothing, right? Just accusations that Russia was engaged, meddling in elections in Germany, and Russia was was engaged in some hacker activity, cyber attacks, and that kind of stuff. No evidence is provided, but How crazy is that these so-called media outlets never asking question? Yes, but Germany is directly engaged in a war with Russia. Germany sends after US, Germany sends most money and weapons, and Berlin is crying about some freaking cyber attacks that maybe or maybe not came from Russia. Are we serious here? What's going on, man? These European countries are directly engaged in a war with Russia, and they are whining about some freaking some cyber attacks that committed by some hacker groups. It's insane, man. It's insane. They should be grateful that freaking nuclear missiles are not flying towards Berlin and Paris and London, at least not for now, for everything that they did against Russian people. And they are whining about freaking cyber attacks. And yet again, no evidence is provided, just the words that Russia was meddling in Germany's elections. And tomorrow they're gonna say AFD is popular because of Russia, that it's Russia is helping them, and they're gonna ban AFD. If AFD is actually independent, and AFD, dear friends, is an alternative for Germany party, right? Alternative for Deutschland party. So if this party is actually led by people that are not part of this globalist agenda, then I guess German regime, current regime that is completely controlled by globalists, will potentially ban this AFD, and they will use Russia as justification that, well, AFD is popular because of Russia. Russia is helping them through cyber attacks, through this and that, and you know what they did in Romania, isn't it? They might do the same in Germany too. Why not? Possible. Let me highlight, dear friends, comment from Blorp, super chat from Blorp on Rumble. Thank you very much, Blorp, again for your super chat. And the comment from Blorp is, those AI models leave out many variables and there are set algorithms that are politically motivated to project the political narrative. I agree with you absolutely, Blorp. You said it all. I agree with every single word that you said. That's exactly what this is. They're gonna tell us that these are independent AIs and they're objective AIs and this and that. Trust them. Oh, in reality, come on, man. These AIs are created by these corporations for a reason, right? And they have their own motivations, their own narratives that they want to implement into a mindset of the society. So I agree with you absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much once again, Blorp, for sharing and for your donation, $5 donation through Super Chat. And this is second Super Chat from Blorp today, by the way. Thank you very much, Blorp. And let me drop a link to my Rumble channel, by the way, in the YouTube chat once again. Hopefully it's visible. I just drop it. So if you can, please continue watching this community chat and be engaged from both platforms if you want to, but from Rumble too. And let's continue our conversation. By the way, I still have news to share with you. Let's, let's at least, let me right now check a couple of media outlets for potential breaking news. So this is RIA Novosti. Russia is looking to the United States for guidance on resolving the conflict in Ukraine, Kremlin stated. Well, okay. Another headlines are Vostok fighters liberated Varvarovka settlement. I already reported about it. Civilian was killed in Ukrainian shelling attack in the Zaporozhye region, unfortunately. Yet another tragedy caused by terrorist attack of Kyiv regime and its NATO backers. For now, report is still that 12 civilians, 12 innocent people were killed in Sydney, Australia, as a result of terrorist attacks. Peskov condemned Rutte for his remarks about the World War II. Well, Rutte is going out. I mean, Rutte is losing it for sure. Every other day, he is coming up with some more and more crazy statements, and maybe it is time to just remove him because he's just too crazy, really. He and Rutte and Kaya Kallas, Ursula Bursula Orsubas. These three people are total embarrassment for Europe. So sooner they being removed, they will be removed. The better, I guess. But Rutte and Kaya Kallas is something extraordinary for sure. Let's check TASS news agency, by the way. For potential 40 Ukrainian drones were shot down over the Russian regions this evening, I guess. Russian air defense systems intercepted and destroyed 40 Ukrainian drones over the Russian regions in past 4 hours, from 12 p.m. to 16 p.m. Moscow time. 40 drones were intercepted on top of these 141 drones that were intercepted past night. 12 drones from these 40 were intercepted in the Bryansk region. 8 drones each were shot down over the Kursk and Belgorod regions. 5 drones over the Oryol region. 3 drones destroyed in the Kaluga region. 2 drones over the Ryazan region, and 1 drone each over the Tula and Tambov regions. Unfortunately, geography of these strikes is still vast. And sometimes I do see questions, dear friends, in the comment section. How come Kyiv regime is still able to produce these drones and launch these drones? Well, yet again, people don't understand how big Ukraine is. This creation of Bolsheviks and how and people also, I mean, don't understand is not the right word. People are just sometimes ignoring the fact that Ukraine is just huge, right? It's the biggest country in Europe, used to be one of the biggest for sure. I don't remember exact numbers, how many thousand square kilometers each country is, but Ukraine is huge, next to France, man, and so and also it's not just there is a lot of places from where these drones can be launched, but also it's like 40 plus countries that are engaged in a war against Russia. It's a 40 plus countries that are waging this proxy war against Russia, and all these countries are producing drones, among other things, producing drones too, and they're deploying these drones against Russia, sending those drones to Kyiv controlled territory to be used against Russia. So these 40 countries, when they're gonna run out of capabilities to build these drones, they're not gonna run out of such capabilities, right? Not today, not tomorrow, not anytime soon, right? Let's be real here. So unfortunately, as long as Kyiv regime exists, as long as the Western ruling class continues to wage this proxy war against Russia, these drone attacks will continue to happen. That's how it is, because yet again, people are kind of ignoring or forgetting that it's 40 plus countries that are waging this proxy war against Russia. Yes, this anti-Russian coalition is led by US and UK and Germany and France and Italy, yes. But there are dozens of other, maybe smaller countries, but still countries that are participating, including militarily and sending whatever they can to Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists, right? They are doing their part to prolong this proxy war as much as they can. And by the way, when it comes to size, in the West, Western propaganda loves to say that, well, Russian troops, there is a stalemate on the battlefield, nothing is happening, nothing to see there. And they are pushing this narrative for many years now, isn't it? And also, they love to say that, well, take a look, Russia only liberated some 20% of territory, or only established control of the 20% or 21% of territory, or whatever. And for many people, I mean, in the West, I can understand that many people maybe don't really care that much, right? And don't check nothing, and maybe they think, Russia is losing, man. They are 4 years of fighting, and they only managed to establish control over like 20% of territory. Those so-called generals, Keane and others, that are telling people all sorts of BS from Fox News and other platforms must be correct then, that they are saying that, well, Ukraine can defeat Russia and stuff. While in reality, if those people were checking some stuff, by the way, they will know that Western MSM cannot be trusted ever, and they will also know that these 20% of territories that are liberated by Russian forces is bigger than, let's say, Hungary. It's bigger than Hungary, by the way, bigger than Slovakia, bigger than Serbia, almost bigger than Bulgaria area in square kilometers, by the way. If you count it, then it's bigger than Bulgaria, Macedonia, by the way, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Slovenia, Czechia, by the way. Czech leadership loves to demonstrate how anti-Russians they are, and they are also actively engaged in all sorts of propaganda, right? And then to push this narrative that, well, the strategic defeat of Russia can be achieved. Russian troops already liberated territory almost twice the size of Czechia, Czech Republic. If Czech people realize that, maybe they will be lesser willing to buy whatever nonsense they are hearing from their governments, right? By territory, what Russia has already liberated, this territory is on half of Italy, by the way. If, let's say, France attacked Italy, and after 3 years, half of Italy was controlled by France, would the Italian people say, you know what? Oh, we are doing great, man. We are doing great. It's will Italians say so? No, man. It's a half of Italy that was taken by France. So yet again, man, people are not realizing how big this creation of Bolsheviks was, man. Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. It was obviously initially created on a historical Russian territory, and then by Lenin, by the way, after revolution. And then Stalin added much more, significantly more, let's say, territories that was taken from Czechoslovakia. Although those territories that Stalin took from Czechoslovakia before First World War was part of belonging to Hungary, by the way. We know it as a Transcarpathia region now. Also, Stalin took a lot of territories from Romania, by the way, a lot of territories. Part of it is Odessa region, part of it is Moldova, separate republic, right? Moldova was also part of Romania. And part of it is in western parts of Ukraine now. So this was a huge republic, and still is a huge, by the way, right? But because people do not look at the specifics, they are more inclined to buy this nonsense from the West that, well, Russia only liberated or take control or whatever they're going to say of 20% of territory. It's nothing, man. It's 3 years. For God's sake, man. Russia already liberated territory that is like twice big as England, man. 3 times bigger than England. Maybe more. England, I'm not talking about whole of UK, but England. Is that small area really? If English people or British people knew specifics or pay attention to specifics, I don't think they would be that inclined to believe all sorts of nonsense that they hear from BBC and Channel 4 and ITV and whatever other bullshit media they have there, right? Anyways, let's continue our our dialogue, dear friends. It's almost 2.5 hours, this live stream, and hopefully you like this way better when I'm engaged in a community chat straight away, and time to time I'm sharing some news. On Sundays, by the way, I think this is okay. After all, it's called community chat, and when I was starting with a big, and usually it's always big news segment, some members just getting tired, right? So it's better to have a community chat straight away, exchange opinions on anything. And as you can see, dear friends, you know, I'm okay with any opinions as long as the opinion is said in normal ways, right? Then we don't have to agree or on anything really, or disagree on anything. We just can have an exchange of opinions, and that's it. Nidish Kumar is commenting, Levan, yesterday US troops died in a suicide blast that they are claiming it's a ISIS attack. Do you think they pointed at Afghanistan to get their base? Yes, I know, and I in news segment that I have prepared, I have news about this too. Two US servicemen were killed there. One probably private military company staff was also killed from America. It was called civilian, but we all understand there are no civilians there in convoys, in military convoys. By the way, it was a PMC member, I guess, former military. So 3 people died there from US. There were a number of injuries, and according to reports that I see, they were attacked by a security member of Damascus regime. This group, this convoy was attacked by security member of the Damascus regime, right? Maybe, and I know they are blaming ISIS. They might say it's ISIS-K, right? But ISIS-K, Syria, Afghanistan, nah. They have to come up with some better arguments to go in Afghanistan again. And frankly speaking, I'm not sure US can go in Afghanistan again. When US attacked Afghanistan together with the other NATO member states and their allies, that happened straight after 9/11, isn't it? And many countries worldwide, all the countries basically worldwide, were in support of this fight against terrorism. That was what officially declared Washington, isn't it? That they are going after terrorists that attacked US. Although I believe 9/11 was inside job, by the way. A million percent, by the way, right? If anyone has any doubts about it, then well, too bad. But it was definitely inside job conducted by Pentagon, CIA, other secret services. FBI did their great work to cover that shit up, right? They did this terrorist attack because they needed enemies. If you take a look at that period, by the way, US was a US military industrial complex was голод, как по-английски голод? Starving. US military industrial complex was starving because US was not really engaged in much of the wars, right? And well, they come up with this war on terror idea, and they conducted such a scale of terrorist attack that will allow them to change whole narrative in the US, right? Change everything basically. And there are many people are saying US before 9/11 and after is like two different countries. And decline, tremendous decline of US has started or accelerated tremendously, at least exactly after 9/11, because of all these changes that ruling class initiated after they conducted or orchestrated this 9/11. while using their assets all over the places, right? Including in Al Qaeda that they created, by the way. Al Qaeda is a creation of CIA, right? And Osama bin Laden was a CIA asset. And they use him, and Americans use bin Laden and Al Qaeda against Soviet forces. Everyone knows this stuff, right? But that's a whole different story. So even Russia was in support of US, by the way. Russia provided military base. Maybe many people in the world don't know, especially in the West, but Russia provided military base for logistics in Ulyanov region. And US was actively using, US and NATO basically actively using that base for quite some time. And Russia agreed NATO to use certain bases in Central Asian republics, in republics where Russia had say, right? Bases that were connected maybe with presence of Russian militaries. So Russia was supporting US on initial stages when this attack happened. And eventually, we know what happened in Afghanistan, right? US went in, US CIA and Pentagon did what they do the best, kill tremendous number of innocent people, probably 50 times more innocent than Taliban fighters. They started war with Al Qaeda, or they turned on Taliban straight away, although Al Qaeda and Taliban are different and are actually, at least for now, even then they were not really friendly to each other. I don't know why Taliban allowed Al Qaeda to be hosted there in Afghanistan. That was a setup, I guess, of CIA. That was a setup. So Americans went in, they did, together with their allies, they did what they do best, killed a lot of innocent, right? They launched a tremendous drug business, cultivation of opium poppies in Afghanistan skyrocketed. Everyone knows this, right? And the thousands of tons of heroin and opium was year-on-year base exported from Afghanistan. And how? US planes, US Pentagon's planes, by the way, planes, transport planes of Pentagon, CIA, and their allies. It was a huge business, right? They were making tens of billions of dollars through this operation, CIA and Pentagon, first of all. Today, Washington blames, I don't know, Caracas for some cocaine trafficking or something. Well, if you want to deal with drug trafficking, take care of CIA and Pentagon, man. That's the biggest drug traffickers ever that this world has seen, correct? And you know, isn't it, that when Taliban kick out Americans and all the others from their land, you know what happened to cultivation, to the numbers in terms of cultivation of opium poppies? It dropped 95+%. How? Because it was a business, man. It was Americans. It was CIA and Pentagon, right? That was leading this operation to turn Afghanistan into this heroin production lab. And they succeeded for 2 decades doing so, right? And well, they were kicked out. So it was a different time when Americans went in. That's what I want to say. And now it's a different times. If US tries to go into Afghanistan with military force, they're gonna be greeted very differently. Very differently. So I'm not sure US has any appetite really for another war with Afghanistan. I don't think so. I'm not sure US will dare to go with a war against Venezuela and Cuba. I'm not sure. Because yet again, if people of Venezuela or Cuba or whichever other country US wants to attack next, if locals will fight, they will get serious help from their friends. And they do have friends, by the way, worldwide. And also, there are a lot of people in this world that are upset at the Western world, to say the least. because of all the crimes that Western world committed, right, worldwide, and because all the harm that they did, Western world did to tens of millions of people in this world. So, friends of people of Venezuela and Cuba and all the other countries that may be attacked by US, and also enemies of the Western world will get unite, become situational allies even, and will provide people in need, people that are attacked by the West with everything. So I'm not sure US will dare to go ahead with the war against Venezuela even. Nothing to be said about Afghanistan, man. No, no. I guess this is, I don't know what happened there uh, in Syria. I don't really have a strong opinion. Maybe some radicalized element saw opportunity to open fire on US militaries and did it successfully and eliminated a number of troops while killing them and injuring them. Maybe something else is going on. I don't know. But to use this incident to attack Afghanistan, no, I don't think so. At least US will justify presence of its troops in Syria with this attack. Because one should keep in mind, ISIS was created by CIA too. People are forgetting that ISIS is a creation of CIA. ISIS was led by people that US kept in jail in Iraq, right? And they recruited those people, released them, and they used them to create this even more radicalized group than Al Qaeda was. And then you know what happened with all the rampage and the devastation that ISIS did all over the Iraq, first of all, and then Syria too, and elsewhere. So maybe US did this attack. Maybe CIA orchestrated this attack through their assets in ISIS to justify further increase even of American presence, military presence in Syria to deter Turkey, potentially to deter Turkey. So maybe this operation is done on behalf of Israel, because if any one country in the region has is becoming worried about the increase of Turkish influence in Syria, let's say, it's Israel. First of all, Israel, right? And you might say, well, Israel and Turkey, they are cooperating for decades now, right? Yes, they do. They never had basically land border with each other, and now they kind of have. Kind of. Not officially, but certain parts of Syria are controlled by either Turkey or Turkish proxies, and they are bordering with the other parts of Syria that are controlled by Israeli proxies and by Israeli troops. And I remind you, Israel is occupying tremendous area of Syria, from Golan Heights and furthermore, right? Israeli troops are basically on the outskirts of Damascus. So maybe all this operation with the killing of US militaries was done by CIA on behalf of Israel to justify further increase of US military presence, because Israel wants the US to keep Turkey on distance. Because in the region, the only country that can actually fight Israel effectively is Turkey. That's it, man. Egyptians do have an army, but I'm not sure about professionalism of Egyptian army. I don't know. But Turkish army is constantly in fight. They are constantly fighting Kurdish militias, right? And the Turkish militaries are constantly involved in all sorts of operations in different parts of this world. I mean, from Northern Africa to Southern Caucasus. So they do have certain level of experience. Oh, let me check. Oh, there was a super chat from John Banzo Binzer on Rumble. Let me highlight, dear friends, this super chat. It takes just a second, dear friends. So this is super chat from Banzo Beans, our moderator. Thank you very much, John, for your super chat and dollar donation. And the comment from John is, did you see my recent email, December 7? It was about a BSW party demanding a vote recount and Merz being the illegitimate chancellor of the Germany. No, I did not, John. I mean, these past 2 weeks were crazy, really, and I'm not sure I did thorough checking of email. No, I will do it. I will do it after the stream. I did miss. I'm afraid I did miss quite a number of miles, but these past few weeks were quite difficult. I was barely managing to do live streams every single day, and then even though I was unable to make them consistently at the same time, unfortunately. But now I'm going back to we are going back to normality, and I'll be more organized, hopefully. So sorry, John, I missed your letter, and thank you very much for telling me now. PSW is I'm not sure. Is this a party of female? I know there is a female, relatively popular female in Germany, left-leaning female, if I remember correctly, that created a party, and they did not get to parliament because they missed very little votes to reach the limit, minimal limit, after which you get a seat into a parliament. Are you talking about that party? There's no way I'm gonna remember surname of that female. Even if you write it down, it's it's very difficult to pronounce. It's a long surname. Or maybe BSV is there another name for, I don't know, alternative for Germany. I don't think so, but in any ways, thank you for letting me know, John. Unfortunately I missed a letter itself, and it is interesting that legitimacy of German chancellor is being questioned. I don't know how far this will go, but thank you. They will, yet again, if these alternative parties in Germany, if they are truly independent from globalists, if they truly are people's parties, right? I think they are in danger. I don't think establishment will allow them to be in a position of power, actually. And they will use traditional methods, by the way. They will say this party is being financed by Russia, supported by Russia. There was some videos on TikTok that was advertising video that was paid by someone from Russia. They will come up with some all sorts of tricks. They did it in Romania, by the way. They stole elections from the people, right? Literally stole the elections from the people openly, without any shame. So they might do the same in Germany, but I find it difficult to believe that they will allow truly independent parties to get to the position of power. I don't know. We will see, though. White Falcon is commenting, what do you think about disastrous situation in Mirnograd? Is the disastrous for whom? It's a disastrous situation for Kiev regime's forces. Well, they should lay down arms and surrender. I said it straight away. Best these encircled troops of Kiev regime can do is to lay down arms and surrender. There was an attempt, by the way, on Kiev regime's side to counterattack in Mirnograd direction in past 24 to 48 hours, and after having significant losses, uh, they just went back. Kiev regime sacrificed up to 100 military personnel, lots, dozens of military personnel, right, in these suicidal attacks, and well, they can continue. They can continue to sacrifice their troops, by the way, but yeah. Best decision those are encircled Kiev regime forces can do is to lay down arms and surrender. That's it. There are reports, also rumors, for more than a week now, that allegedly that suggests that a significant part of these encircled troops of Kiev regime did manage to escape from Mirnograd, but I don't know. I find it difficult to believe in that. But yeah, anything is possible, obviously, but I find it difficult to believe in that. Probably most of the troops that were encircled in Mirnograd are still there, encircled, and some are suggesting, some reports suggest, by the way, that among encircled units, most of the encircled units are from two elite brigades of the Kiev regime. That used to be most battle capable brigades, and those brigades has been reduced to nothing in Mirnograd. They've been sacrificed by Kiev regime, isn't it? They've been sacrificed by Kiev regime just to hold on to certain territory for another week or two. That's it. And these so-called elite units being sacrificed for that. Also, Nidish Kumar is commenting, Levan, looks like Eritrean Ethiopian conflict is starting again. And yes, there is on-off escalation there between the two. Eritrea, of course, all of our community, or majority at least, know that Eritrea used to be a part of Ethiopia, gained independence in relatively recently, by the way, a couple of decades ago. And they already were engaged in a war, right? And well, issue there between Eritrea and Ethiopia is that after losing this territory, Ethiopia practically lost access to the sea, isn't it? Let's check on the map, by the way. And I think our best way to resolve the issues between the two countries is to do either territory swap or something to allow Ethiopia to get to the sea. Otherwise, tension's gonna be there for a long time, if not forever, until Ethiopia will eventually get to their sea, right? So where are we now? So this is Ethiopia, right? And this is Eritrea on top. So you see, by the way, Ethiopia is cut. Ethiopia is cut from sea after losing Eritrea. And I think there is a potential, and they are still engaged in hostilities, by the way, allegedly, from what I know, and I'm obviously not an expert in African politics. But from what I know, Eritrea is being accused by Ethiopia of supporting certain rebel or militia groups on Ethiopian territory. Eritrea, on its part, has also accusations towards Ethiopia. Um, it's a mess, but I think best way for both sides to resolve issues in the long term is to do some territory swaps. Ethiopia has to get to the Red Sea. Sorry, not yes, Red Sea, isn't it? It's a Red Sea. So Ethiopia has to have access to the sea. Otherwise, and that's why, by the way, Ethiopia is supporting Somaliland, right? Breakthrough area of Somalia, breakthrough area from Mogadishu. The reason why Ethiopia is engaged in that is to have access to the sea, right? But if they will resolve the situation with Eritrea, I guess Ethiopia will come, will resolve issues with Mogadishu much more easy. Although in Mogadishu you have to have a like legit government and some institutions to deal with them, right? For now, Somalia is still largely is like uncontrolled territory, let's say this way. So yes, they will go ahead with some military clashes because yet again Ethiopia cannot stop. Ethiopia is a big powerful country, country that has historically, by the way, very rich history. And Ethiopia, I can understand why Ethiopian people will consider themselves to be leaders of the region, right? And they need their access to the sea. Ethiopia needs to have access to the sea, by the way. Otherwise, there's gonna be war, for sure. And sooner Eritrean leadership will realize that, the better. They have to do some territory swap, otherwise Ethiopia will take it by force. There was a war between the sides, and it did not really resolve much. So they're going to be another one, and then another one, until Ethiopia will finally gets its feet on the shores of the Red Sea. I think that's what's going to happen, man. You cannot stop Ethiopia. This is a country that definitely will never feel safe and will never feel comfortable until it will get to the sea. Ethiopia cannot stay landlocked, just cannot. So yeah, sooner Eritrea realizes that's better. And there was a war between them, isn't it? And I believe at one instance, Eritrean Su-27s, two Su-27s from Eritrea, Russian planes, by the way, intercepted they get engaged with with pair of MiG-29s, also Soviet airplanes, and their Su-27s come on top during that war between Eritrea and Ethiopia. Let me check. So I checked their page here. There is no message from Anna, so I guess there was nothing through PayPal. And dear friends, I don't know. Uh, I have to end there. I guess I have to end live stream now because I don't really feel well. Maybe a couple of more minutes. So, dear friends, if I may, I will end the live stream now. I don't really feel good there. It's almost 3 hours. So I know I'm gonna miss quite a number of questions, sir. My apologies for that. My apologies for that. But maybe next Sunday we will have a longer live stream. So for now, this is it, I guess. So, dear friends, my apologies for cutting live stream shorter. It's like 3 hours, not really short, but yes, I will. I don't know, but what the hell? Maybe pressure, blood pressure, or something. So, okay, I'm gonna end the stream now, dear friends. Thank you very much for this great conversation, for your support and attention. Have a wonderful day, and take care. See you tomorrow. Thank you.